This is the Auntie M Brain Tumours Talk Show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Auntie M Brain Tumours Talk Show on podcast.
Hi, my name's Nicki Hopkins. My husband was diagnosed with a brain tumour in September 2020. We was living a very normal life, living our best lives. My husband, for those people that don't know, he went by the name of Did, after Diddy David Hopkins. So that's where Did comes from, in case people think I'm crazy and they're like, what are you talking about? Did? Who's Did? So yeah. So at the beginning, it was 2020 in the middle of COVID. We'd just been on holiday, end of July, come back about the 4th of August, had an amazing time in Croatia. Much to some people's dismay, why are you even contemplating on going to Croatia in the middle of lockdown? Most people are not even attempting to go abroad in situations like this, but we just absolutely lived life to the full. We loved travelling. So as soon as we knew that we could get to Croatia, because it was one of the safe places, we went. Had a brilliant time, living life. Got back, as I say, about the 4th of August. 10 days later, my husband was playing badminton with his eldest daughter, and he came home and he said to me, it's really weird, I've got a flicker in my eye. And it was a really hot day, so we put it down to him being dehydrated. So we thought he was dehydrated. That was the 14th of August. He absolutely loved going and playing badminton every single Wednesday with his eldest daughter. So that's what he'd done. Then a few days later, he said, my head feels a bit fuzzy. He'd got like fuzziness going on in his head. And I said, right, anyway, just continued. He never ever took headache tablets. So it wasn't at that point where he needed headache tablets, but he just said it was like really dull headaches, which I think we've all experienced, haven't we? You know, where your head feels a bit dull. Anyway, we'd then gone away a few days later in a log cabin with some friends, and my husband was really, really good with his directions. He only had to drive somewhere once, and then the next time he would know exactly where he was going. And we'd arrived at the lodge, and me and his friend and him had gone out for a run, because my husband was always a fitness fanatic. The whole time that I'd known him. And we got together in 2007. We actually went to school together. We was the same year at school, but we actually didn't get together till 2007. But we'd always been friends. If we ever saw each other, said hello. So we'd gone out this particular day for a run. As I said, he was a fitness fanatic. He loved running, going to the gym. And me and his friend was at the front, and my husband had was in front of us, but he'd gone a bit further. And I thought, he often does that anyway. He'll decide, I'm just going a bit further. So we went back to the log cabin anyway. When we got back there, he then came back about 5 minutes later, and I said, did you decide to go a bit further? He said, no. He said, I couldn't work out which way I needed to turn to get back. And I said, that isn't like you. He said, I know. He said, it was really weird. I just couldn't work out which way. So I said, right, okay. Anyway, when we got back that weekend, I said to him, you really must go to the doctors. So he said, I'll nip and see the nurse at work. So he'd gone to see the nurse at work. And this was then sort of another week in. He'd gone to see the nurse, and she'd said he'd got some high blood pressure. So he went to the doctors, told them his symptoms, that he'd got this high blood pressure. They checked everything, said about the headaches, these dull headaches, and they said, we'll prescribe you with some migraine medication. It's maybe a migraine. So that was the Thursday before the August bank holiday. Anyway, on August bank holiday, it was the Monday. We'd been out on the Saturday night as well. And because of him having this high blood pressure, it said, right, I'm just going to monitor it. So they put it down to just migraine symptoms and the high blood pressure. On the Monday, we'd gone out for the day with my daughter, and as we got out the car, it was like, all I could say was, I've never seen my husband like it. It was like it got stabbing pain to his head, and he was like, this is horrific. He'd got the tablet, so I said, right, should we go home? No, we're not going home. We are out for the day. Sydney wants to enjoy a day round the maze. We're not going anywhere. I said, okay. So he took the tablets, we carried on like normal, we went round the maze, and he said, I'm not going to do the normal activities. Normally he'd be the one straight away bouncing with her on the bouncy castle. He said, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, I agree. That was on the bank holiday Monday. On the Tuesday morning, he'd said to work, he'd had to go into the doctor's first thing to have some blood tests done. So he'd had them done, drove off to work, and it was about 3:00 in the afternoon, maybe a little bit earlier than that. And he rung me and he said, I really don't feel right. And I just said to him, look, I think you need to come home. And he was like, I'm coming. So for him to come home, I knew it wasn't right. Anyway, I got my mum to pick my daughter up. We went to A&E, and because it was COVID, we was in these restrictions. I wasn't allowed in with him. So I said to him, you've got to go in there. You've got to tell them every single symptom. Your loss of direction, or flicker in the eye, this blurred thing in the eye, the headaches, the fact that they said you've got high blood pressure. I said, promise me you've got to do it, because I know what he's like. He would play it down. And he said, I promise you I will. He went into hospital and he rung me back and he said, oh, they're sending me for a CT scan. He said, they're going to let me go in he said, I'm just going to go in and he said, you can set off if you want and come and pick me up. So I said, oh, okay. Anyway, I got coming out of Broughton where I picked my daughter up from. And he said, and my phone was ringing and I thought I better answer. So I pulled up because obviously I was driving, and he just said to me, take Sydney to your mum's, bring me an overnight bag, and I'll speak to you when you get here. So I knew that there was something. So I packed his bag, took my daughter, packed the bag, went to hospital. And when I got there, I had to ring the buzzer for the ward. And the nurse came to me and she said, oh, I've got my husband's thing. She said, oh, thank you. I said, hang on. I said, I need to speak to my husband. I don't even know why he's here. Oh, 1 minute, I'll go and get him. So she went and fetched him, brought him out to me. And he had to stand there in the corridor by himself and tell me that they'd just told him he'd got a brain tumour. I mean, I know we was in COVID, but it was the fact that there was nobody there to get us together to tell me or him. All we knew was it was a brain tumour, that they were not letting him home. So this was on the Tuesday, the 1st of September. They told him, you've got a brain tumour, you're not going home, and we need to get you over to Hull Royal Infirmary. And this was so that was the Tuesday. Fast forward, they then were doing further scans in Scunthorpe General. They were checking cancer all over the body. They couldn't tell us whether it was malignant or non-malignant. So we knew nothing at that stage. All that we knew was that they had to get him over to Hull Royal as soon as possible to get a biopsy done. By the Friday he was at Hull Royal. The Monday morning he was having surgery to remove the tumour. They was hoping to get the whole of the tumour out. They told us they'd removed 95% of the tumour. They couldn't get the rest of it. If they'd gone and got the rest of it, he would have either been paralysed or had no quality of life. And the surgeon that we had was phenomenal. So we was actually living with hope all the time because we believed we'd got as much of it as what we could. My husband felt amazing. Within 2 days, he was home. He was going up and down the stairs at Hull Royal to prove to him how fit he was to come home. Within a week of being home, he was back out running 5Ks, back out doing the school journeys, the school runs, living a normal life. It was unreal. And on the 1st of September, we got the diagnosis over the phone that it was glio, and it got 12 months, at the most maybe 18. My husband always believed he would be one that would defy the odds. And we as a family went with that belief as well, because you've got to. You either sink or swim. And how I was the one, along with his dad, his kids, we were all absolutely devastated, but we weren't living with that. And I think when you believe that you're going to have that person in your life forever, and then all of a sudden overnight, your life totally changes. You can't believe it's actually happening to you. It's like a nightmare. And But my husband was just so determined, and we literally never stopped researching. We did everything, cared for him right to the end, because he said under no circumstances, I don't want to be in a hospital or a hospice. And did the biggest thing that we believed in was quality of life for as long as we could. So did quality of life for probably about definitely 2 weeks before. He was still living a really good life, but probably maybe about 4 to 6 weeks before it started to decline. And I knew that it was getting worse, but I never expected it to come that quick. And all they'd ever said to me was, I need a quality of life for as long as I can. And I really believe that he got that. We did absolutely everything through his illness, as much as what we could during the COVID times. So in about the April time, his legs had started to go a bit weak. At one point after the diagnosis, we was going down to London. He was going for a trial. It was one of the only trials that was open at the time because of COVID again. There was hardly any trials open. And we'd actually got on the train down to London to go and meet Paul Mulholland, one of the top guys. And we got down there and he wasn't eligible for the actual trial. That itself, that day, we both just cried. Because that was his hope, that trial. And it was once that trial hope had gone, that was when we suddenly went, right, we've got to find something else. And that was when all they kept saying to me was, you've got to find something. You've got to keep me here as long as I can. Did just always wanted to keep living his best life. And it was just like, right, and honestly, my calendar was so full every single weekend. And I just kept saying to everybody, it's just unbelievable. He just finds this energy. He just keeps so busy. He was just determined to do everything. And we'd actually been out to Germany for treatment in the August, and we'd got a holiday booked to go out to Tenerife, me, him and our daughter. And I'd got everybody saying to me, Nicki, he can't go. What happens if something happens to him over there? It's not fair. How are you going to cope with just you, him and Sydney? And I remember all this pressure of people saying, you can't go. And then I've got Did saying, we can go, and we are going. They are not dying. I am dying. They are not in my position. We are going. And we got wheelchairs. I did all my research before we went. I knew where the nearest hospital was with brain support if I needed it. I contacted the Tenerife Health Board. I knew exactly what I needed to do. As soon as I got there, I went and spoke to the reps and I said, look, if anything happens, I need to know who I can contact to get somebody to look after my daughter. I literally had everything in place. We went with, it took me, I had to fight to get insurance, and I had to fight to get Jet2 to even let us to fly, because they wouldn't let us fly unless the consultant said he'd got 6 months left. And the consultant said to me in the August, Nicki, yeah, he's got 6 months left. Oh my God, that was amazing. The fact that he told me he'll be good for 6 months, and yet he'd gone by the November. That was how quick. So whether that consultant did that for us because he knew how important it was, but yet that was the private consultant that we had. The NHS consultant wouldn't do it. We just got told it was between 12 and 18 months. I'll never forget that. And it passed away on the 6th of November, 2021, and did the biggest thing that we believed in. Sorry, I'm going backwards and forwards here, aren't I? But the biggest thing that we believed in was quality of life for as long as we could. So did quality of life for probably about definitely 2 weeks before. He was still living a really good life, but probably maybe about 4 to 6 weeks before it started to decline. And I knew that it was getting worse, but I never expected it to come that quick. And all they'd ever said to me was, I need a quality of life for as long as I can. And I really believe that he got that. I didn't go back to my job because my job was travelling away and being on the road nationally. I needed to be hit for my daughter. And I had a year off. I mentally couldn't cope with the pressures of work. My only way of coping when I look back was literally fundraising. And I just fundraised. There wasn't a single month go by that I didn't fundraise. We had something going on every single month, and that was my way of coping. I just put everything into that. And then we hit the beginning of 2023, and I just suddenly thought, I felt like it had become an obsession, and I felt like I needed a break and I needed to concentrate on my daughter and me. I didn't want her to just think that everything was around brain tumours and that her whole life was going to be fundraising. And after the March of 2023, I was like, I need a break from this. And then last year I did odd bits. I've now got a couple of things booked to do. So I just keep thinking, you know what, if I keep doing my bit, it's devastating what you see. And I'll always support brain tumour research and campaign and raise awareness. But I need to have a life outside of that as well. I'm just going to live my best life. My husband can't do that. And he always said to me, one thing you've got to do is bring Sydney up. And you've got to make sure that she grows up with the life that I would have given her. And that is so hard because he should be here seeing all of these milestones. He should be here, you know, for all three of those kids, seeing Dylan progress, seeing Lydia, she's progressed with her work. She's absolutely fantastic, you know, Sydney. And it's just all these things that he should be here for. And that's when you get angry. That's when you get mad that he's just missing out on all those things. And that is hard. Learning to live a life by myself without Did. That is really hard because it's everything. When he passed away on the 6th of November, my daughter turned 10 on the 14th of November. My husband, we had the funeral on the 17th of November. We had my wedding anniversary 4 days later, after he died on the 10th of November. Then we had Christmas, we had Dylan's, but there was just so many things within 8 weeks of him passing away. And I feel like that was all a blur. I feel like we'd got all these things planned and they just carried on and went ahead. But I promised my husband that they would. And I feel that that's one thing that has probably helped me cope because of the conversations that we had. I was able to have conversations with my husband about what he wanted. I just live in the moment, you know. I try not to think too far ahead, and I just love my holidays. I say to my daughter, we're going to travel as much as we can. We're going to live the life that your dad would have lived with us, but in a new way. And we're going to keep making memories and doing and living our best life. Life is too short.
This is the Auntie M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Auntie M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.